High on Mount Everest, above 8,000 meters, where the air is so thin it feels like breathing through fire, a woman sat perfectly still. She wasn't resting. She wasn't sleeping. She couldn't move. Her body was shutting down, slowly, quietly, irreversibly. Next to her stood the man she loved. He knew the rules of the mountain. He knew what staying meant. He knew that every extra minute was stealing his own life. And yet, he refused to leave. Around them, climbers passed by. Some stopped. Some tried to help. Some begged him to go. But he stayed. Not because he didn't understand the danger, but because love doesn't follow survival logic. You're about to hear one of the most disturbing and most intimate stories ever told on Everest. A story where love became heavier than oxygen loyalty, became a death sentence, and the mountain watched silently as two lives faded into ice. By the end of this video, you will have to answer one question for yourself. Was this the purest act of love ever witnessed on Everest? Or was it a fatal mistake that cost two people their lives? This is the story of Francis Arsentiev and Sergei Arsentiev, a love story written not in words, but in snow, silence, and the thin air of the death zone. Francis Arsentiev. She was not a professional climber, not a legend, not a record breaker. Francis was an ordinary American woman with an extraordinary dream. She was stubborn, determined, quietly ambitious. She believed that if she prepared hard enough, if she suffered enough, she could stand on the highest point on earth. Everest was not about fame for her. It was about proving something to herself. But the mountain does not care about dreams. Sergei Arsentiev. Sergei was different, strong, highly experienced, respected among climbers. He had summited high peaks before. He understood the risks better than anyone. And yet, he believed in Francis more than she believed in herself. Sergei didn't chase records. He didn't need Everest to prove who he was. His goal was simpler and more dangerous. He wanted to give the woman he loved the greatest gift he could imagine. Not the summit, but the dream of reaching it. Emotional hook. He didn't want to conquer Everest. He wanted to give her a dream. And that belief, that love, would later become the reason neither of them walked away. The idea was simple and terrifying. To climb Everest without supplemental oxygen. For Francis, it wasn't about records or fame. It was about proving something. To herself, to the world, and maybe even to the mountain. But climbing without oxygen is not just harder. It is twice as deadly. Above 8,000 meters, the human body begins to shut down. Your brain slows. Your muscles weaken. Judgment fades. Every step becomes a gamble. Sergei knew the risks. He understood them better than most. And yet, he believed in her, more than she believed in herself. Pressure began to grow, from the goal, from the expectations, from the idea that turning back would mean failure. They weren't just climbing a mountain anymore. They were chasing a dream that had already gone too far. And somewhere on that slope, love stopped being protection and started becoming danger. Act Y ends with a question. Was love pushing them forward, or was it blinding them? Against all odds, they make it, step by step, breath by breath, on pure will alone. Francis reaches the top of the world, becoming the first American woman to summit Everest without supplemental oxygen. It should be the greatest moment of her life. But the victory lasts only minutes. There are no smiles, no celebration, no strength left to feel joy. The wind screams. The cold cuts through everything. Her body is already shutting down. Sergei looks at her and understands something terrifying. The summit has taken everything from her. And then, the music stops. Because on Everest, the summit is never the end. It is only the beginning of the most dangerous part, the way down. And Francis has nothing left to give. The descent begins quietly, too quietly. Francis moves slowly at first. Her steps are unsure. Her breathing is shallow, uneven. Every meter down feels harder than the climb up. Without oxygen, her body is no longer recovering. It is collapsing. Her hands lose strength. Her legs stop responding. Her thoughts become confused. She stumbles, then sits down, just for a moment. Sergei turns back, tells her to stand, tells her they have to keep moving. She tries. She can't. The mountain is unforgiving in moments like this. Cold steals heat. Wind steals energy. Altitude steals reason. Other climbers pass them. Some stop. Some try to help. Some beg Sergei to leave her and save himself. But Francis looks at him, and he sees fear, not panic, not hysteria, just exhaustion. She whispers that she's cold, that she's tired, that she needs a moment. And Sergei makes his first impossible choice. He stays. Minutes turn into hours. The temperature drops. The wind grows louder. Darkness approaches. Francis can no longer stand. She can barely speak. And Sergei understands the truth that no climber wants to face. If you stop on Everest, the mountain decides for you. This is no longer about summits, or records, or dreams. It is about one question. Do you leave the person you love, or do you stay, knowing what it will cost you? Sergei returns to her. The wind is rising, the cold is tightening its grip, and time is running out. Other climbers stop him. They beg him to leave. They tell him the truth he already knows. If he stays, he will die. But Sergei turns back, not once, not twice, again and again. Each return costs him oxygen. Each step back drains what little strength he has left. He knows the risk. He understands the math. One body cannot save another body here, yet he goes back. Because leaving would mean survival, and staying would mean love. He kneels beside her in the snow, talks to her, tries to wake her, tries to warm her hands with his own. And in that moment, Everest stops being a mountain. It becomes a question. Midpoint question for comments. If you were him, would you leave to live or stay to die with the person you love? Death in front of others. Francis sits down on the slope. She doesn't fall. She doesn't scream. She simply stops. Her eyes remain open. Her body is still. Her breathing is shallow, barely visible in the frozen air. Climbers begin to pass her. Some slow down. Some kneel beside her for a moment. Some try to speak to her, to wake her, to make her stand. But at this altitude, compassion is not enough. No one can lift her. No one can carry her. No one has the oxygen, the strength, or the time. They know the rule. The cruel, unspoken rule of Everest. If you stop here, you are already gone. And so they move on. Step by step, climbers walk past a woman who is still alive, but no longer reachable. Her eyes follow them, not with fear, not with anger, but with something quieter, acceptance. Later, many of them would say the same thing. She was still alive, but Everest had already decided. And in that moment, the mountain made it clear. Not all deaths are sudden. Some happen slowly, in silence in front of the world. Why they couldn't be saved. High above the clouds, on Everest, lies a place climbers call the death zone. Not because it sounds dramatic, but because the human body simply cannot survive there for long. At this altitude, every breath contains only a fraction of the oxygen we need. Muscles weaken. Thoughts slow. Even standing upright becomes a battle. A single human body weighs far more than it should, not because it's heavier, but because the strength to move it is gone. Rescue here isn't about compassion or courage, it's about physics. To carry someone down, a climber would need strength they no longer have, oxygen that is already running out, and time that Everest never gives. Every minute spent trying to save another life puts your own life at risk. This is the cruel reality of the mountain. Not everyone who passes by is heartless. Most are simply powerless. Because on Everest, love doesn't change the rules. Experience doesn't change the rules. Good intentions don't change the rules. Everest doesn't care who you love. And once the mountain decides, no one can argue with it. Epilogue. What remained after her death, Frances Arsenyev became known by a name she never chose, the Green Boots Woman. For years, climbers passed her sitting on the route. Her eyes were open, her body frozen in place, a silent reminder of how thin the line is between dream and disaster. Later, other climbers gently covered her body, not to erase her story, but to give future climbers peace, to let them remember her as a person, not a landmark. Sergei Arsenyev was never found. Some believe he fell while trying to return to her. Others believe the mountain simply kept him, as it keeps so many. There was no farewell, no final message, only absence. Some call this the greatest love story on Everest. Others call it a warning written in ice. But one thing is certain: love doesn't change the mountain changes love. And Everest remembers everything. Final CTA. Closing words. If this story stayed with you, if it made you pause or feel the weight of a choice no one should ever have to make, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and tell me in the comments, was this love, or was it a tragic mistake born on the mountain? My name is Erka Sulu. This is Frost of Heights. Here we don't judge the mountain, we listen to what it leaves behind.